I'm Kevin Beins,
And I'm Joe Yamulla.
and you're listening to The Drive and Kick. What is going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to the opening episode of The Drive and Kick. We are recording this on a Saturday, October 15th, officially 3 days before the NBA season kicks off. Joe, how you doing today?
I'm good. I'm in my late 20s and I've done something I've always wanted to do, and that's start a podcast. So I'm doing good. I'm doing good, Kev. It's good to be here.
Well, that is great to hear. I couldn't be more excited to start this podcast with you. This is going to be a great time. So, on today's episode of The Drive and Kick, Joe and I are going to discuss our thoughts on the Philadelphia 76ers and the Washington Wizards before they kick off the 2022-2023 NBA season. Then we'll go on to some of our predictions for the NBA season as a whole, and finish off with some notes on the first week of NBA action. Let's jump right in, Joe. During this first segment, we are going to give our thoughts on our specific teams, the Sixers and the Wizards, for something we like, something we don't like, and something we hate. This is our take on the good, the bad, and the ugly, which we are affectionately naming the Embiid, the Bertans, and the Thabit. So, Joe, give me your version of the Embiid.
Well, I'm going to start the Embiid with Embiid. I will always love any Sixers team that has Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid is my most adored athlete of my lifetime. My favorite athlete I've ever watched, not just in Philadelphia, but in any sport. He's a joy to watch play. He's the best. I love him. I love him so much. I could talk for 30 minutes about how much I love Embiid. Every time, I mean, even last year, I was with the Simmons year, with the weird team. I'll always be excited about a Sixers team with Joel Embiid. My fandom is just lit with passion when he's on the floor. So Joel Embiid, I love. Let's talk about the team itself. I love the fact that it's the deepest team the Sixers have ever had. I think it's the most complete team the Sixers have had.
Mm-hmm.
The Sixers have not made it out of the second round since I was 6 years old. So I think this team could do it. I think they're a complete team. What I am a little concerned about is there are two players who are very important to this team. One is 50 years old and PJ Tucker, and one is 40 years old, 37 and 33 and James Harden. We're putting a lot on those legs, possibly slow legs, possibly achy and old legs. But that doesn't concern me that much.
Well, something that, I feel might concern you a little bit, going back to Embiid and your team's general health with these old people in general, is Embiid's durability for the season. And that actually brings us to our very first mailbag question from Tamir out in California, where he asked, I was wondering if you think the durability Embiid showed last year is sustainable, or if he will revert back to his injury-plagued past. That's a great question, Tamir. Thank you for the email. He played 68 games last year, a career high. What do you think about that, Jens?
I think Embiid's health is always going to be fine in the regular season, because when you think about Embiid, I mean, he's played 68 games. The season before that, he played 51. Season before that, he played 51. Season before that, 64. Season before that, 63. Season before that, 31, because he tore his, his MCL? I don't know, his knee.
He's tearing things every year.
The thing with Embiid is that he's actually a bit of an Iron Man in the regular season. The thing that concerns me with him is the weird playoff injuries when you actually need him. And I think in the regular season, he's going to be fine. They do a pretty good job appropriately managing him, but I'll always be concerned.
As we know, as soon as the Sixers make it to the playoffs, Joel Embiid's bones turn to peanut brittle and they just break left and right, whether it's a random elbow to the face, or just the ball bounces off his hand wrong. Something's going to happen. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when.
Here's the thing. Yeah, I mean, look, here's the thing with Embiid. I want to say he's not injury prone because his injuries have been such freak injuries. I mean, he had Markelle Fultz break his face in 2018, and then he has face broken again by Precious Achua. Was that?
I believe it was Pascal Siakam.
It was Siakam. He breaks fingers. So I don't know, I think that by definition, he is prone to these weird injuries. So it is always going to be a concern. I mean, part of being a Sixers, and that's what I'll go as my the beat, is that inner fear that we're going to just roll through the regular season, look awesome, and then Embiid is going to somehow break his toe and then have like a punctured ear. I don't know. There's going to be something weird. Weirdness surrounds them. So it's like, yeah, I'm worried about it. What do you think about the Wizards, Kev? Let's hear it. Let's talk about the Washington Wizards.
Oh, it's about time someone spoke about the Washington Wizards, because I got to say, having been an avid podcast listener, I think I've heard a conversation about the Washington Wizards 3 times in the last 5 years on a national NBA podcast. So I'm very happy to take these reins and kind of tell everyone how little I am looking forward to our NBA season. So first, we could start off with my version of the Embiid, and that's our international guys. Your favorite player, Kristaps Porzingis, is coming off of a strong Euro basketball showing where he put up 23 and 12. He was getting 2 blocks a game, doing his Kristaps thing, the pick and pop, the weird 15-foot post up turnarounds that he likes. But the difference was his physicality this summer. He was getting to the line, 11 times a game, which for a team that was painfully average, I think we were 15th in drawing fouls last year, or shooting free throws last year. We really need to have some sort of physicality in there. And then plus, he grew out a goatee, so that he means business. So he's the first one, along with Denny Avdia, who also had a very good showing at Euro basketball, and then just the preseason in general. Additionally, he played Auburn and put up 25, 7, and 6 against Auburn, which is nothing to laugh at because they're a preseason top 15 college team in the country. He looks more confident offensively. He's more decisive. And at the end of the day, he's still only 21. So I think this is a big year for Denny, and I think he's going to show a lot and hopefully bring some of that decisiveness and energy that he had this summer to a Wizards team that's going to desperately need him to show something.
I don't know. I can't buy the Porzingis sale. I think he stinks. He's that kind of guy where they're like, oh, he could spread the floor. Then I feel like he shoots like 20% from 3, even though his numbers are higher. I don't think I've ever seen Kristaps Porzingis make a 3.
Kristaps Porzingis is a career 35% 3-point shooter. He's not, I'm not saying he's a dagger. He's not someone that you absolutely have to fear out there, but he's very capable. He shot like 37% from the Wiz last year. And realistically, the concern with Kristaps is not his offensive game. It is how many games is he going to play? And the answer is probably 55. That just seems to be his go-to.
Yeah, he'll have some weird foot injury, ankle tightness.
He's played over 60 games one time in his career, and that was in 2017. So the hopes are not high for how many games he ends up playing. But even still, he looks great this summer. He looked great before getting hurt this preseason. I think he has the ability to potentially be an all-star this year if he's healthy. And that's obviously a big if.
So what do you hate about them? Because I have one Wizards question that I'm dying to ask, but I want to know what you hate before I ask this.
So there's so many concerns with this team. The first one, and it would be my version of the bad, or the Bertans, as we call it, named after Davis Bertans, who is banned from this podcast, by the way. Johnny Davis just looks like a mess. I was saying months ago about how much I wanted a player like Benedict Mathurin in the draft, maybe a Keegan Murray before he skyrocketed off the lottery. But I knew, and I said this, I knew we were going to end up with Johnny Davis, and it made me sick to my stomach. And he comes into this summer league and this preseason and does exactly what I fear. He cannot shoot. He cannot dribble. I'm not writing him off completely because he's
Sounds like a Sixer.
He sounds like the perfect traditional Sixers player where he just forgets how to do everything. Except in this case, he didn't really know how to do it at Wisconsin to begin with. And again, I don't want to write the guy off. He hasn't even played an NBA season yet. But I am absolutely terrified of having a massive miss after another middle of the road team for the Wizards.
So let's talk about the middle. Before we move on, this is a question I've been dying to ask you, Kevin. This is Bradley Beal's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This will be his 11th season in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
He's played up with the Wizards every one. The Wizards have been the Wizards since 2012.
The Wizards have been the Wizards since like 1979.
I want to ask, is Bradley Beal a loser? Is Bradley Beal a loser? Is it loser stuff to not want to leave? I'm bullish on Beal as a player. I love him. I want him on the Sixers very badly, but something in me, staying in one place, like there is something admirable about it, but then there's also something loser about it.
What I will say is I don't think people talk that way about Damian Lillard. And obviously Damian Lillard has done more. He's been better just about every season he's been in the NBA than Bradley Beal. But the real difference between Damian Lillard and Bradley Beal is, and this is very underrated for Beal, he's not clutch at all. He can't hit shots down the stretch. He has weird turnovers where he'll be dribbling, crossover, off his foot, out of bounds. He had one last season, or maybe it was the season before, I can't even remember, playing the Celtics, where he gets the ball in the inbounds, few seconds left. They come for the double, and he just slips and falls, turns it over, and the Celtics win. So is he a loser? I would say no. I would say he's not a loser, but I don't think he's an NBA winner. And
I think his time is growing close to being determined if he's a loser or not.
See, my thought process is someone that isn't a loser and isn't a winner is the perfect Washington Wizard, because that's us all the time. We don't lose. We don't win. You're just
existing. You're existing.
Simply existing. So, and just my final thoughts, my beat, if you will, we're going to be about Bradley Beal and his contract and how he's the 10th player all time to get a no trade clause, and there are 9 first ballot Hall of Famers and Bradley Beal, but that's been beaten into the ground. We've already talked about Beal as a whole. So instead, I just want to bring up just briefly how bad of a rebounding team we are about to be. We've been out rebounded in every single summer league game, including by 26 rebounds to the Knicks last night. Our center, Kristaps Porzingis, if healthy, is an average rebounder at best for a big man. Like, I don't know, 8, maybe 9. Our backup center, Daniel Gafford, might be the most athletic, terrible rebounder in the entire NBA.
Gafford's a guy, when I watch him play the Sixers a couple times a year, I think he's like the most athletic guy I've ever seen in my life.
I love Gafford. I think he's a great backup big, but he can't rebound. He averages like 5 rebounds a game. And for someone that's that long and that active, 5 rebounds a game is kind of pathetic, but
it's very frustrating to have a poor rebounding team. Last season, after when Simmons held out, and then after the Simmons trade, the Sixers were just the worst rebounding team I've ever seen in my life. And possessions are so big when it matters, like giving up possessions. Like the Sixers gave up, I would say, 500 offensive rebounds a game.
correct me, give or take. Correct me if I'm wrong, though. I think you guys were literally dead last in the league in rebounding. And you had Embiid, who's a great rebounder.
I disagree. If you watch Embiid every night, he's a large boy, but he's a bad rebounder. A lot of it is he kind of chooses when he wants to use his energy, and that's where they missed Simmons the most was on the glass, because Embiid, he can be a good rebounder when he wants to be, but half the time he's in cruise control.
I guess I should say capable rebounder. He got 12 boards a game, but that'll only do so much.
Tobias Harris is literally allergic to getting loose balls. If he sees a loose ball, he'll jump the other direction.
If Bradley Beal is the loser, I don't know what that makes Tobias Harris, but infinitely worse. I couldn't be less of a Tobias Harris guy.
So. Yeah, before we move on, I could quick talk about Tobias.
Please.
You know what? Tobias is fine, but it will be interesting to see what he looks like this year, because last year after the Harden trade, I expected him to remain in 2004 Carmelo mode, dribble, 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 post up, post up, post up, hold the ball for 18 seconds and then shoot a fadeaway. But he actually ended up accepting a new role. He was catching and shooting, making quick decisions. I don't think he likes doing that is a thing. So I think eventually, for the first 10 games, we'll probably see him catch and shoot quick decisions, but he'll probably start, looking back at some 2004 Carmelo tape and be like, I want to be that guy. And
nothing then quite like the jab step. Nothing quite like the jab step pull up.
Oh yeah, that's the bias.
I will say he is a bona fide Wizards killer. And speaking of Wizards killers, I would love to hear your thoughts on this quote that I've gotten from our good friend Daniel Hamilton. For the listeners that don't know Dan Hamilton, he is a diehard Philadelphia 76ers fan. Some would say delusional, but I'm going to go with diehard. And I asked him before this podcast what his thoughts were on Tyrese Maxey. And I'd love to hear what you have to say about this, Joe. He says, Tyrese Maxey will make an all-star team and keep shooting the lights out from three. It wouldn't surprise me if he leads the team in points per game. And overall, I think he has a very good chance to make an all-NBA team. Not first team, but all-NBA still. Joe, what do you think about that?
I think I agree on just about every front. I think Maxey's an all-star this year. Watching Tyrese Maxey, it is weird because the Sixers have never had a guy who's worked out like this. Every year there's something wrong with the Sixers guard. They've never had a guy who could just get better in every way. And every year I think Maxey's kind of hit his plateau and there's only so much more he could do to improve, but every year he proves me wrong and he's gotten significantly better. I feel like he's never going to miss a shot when he pulls up from three. And he's shown that the three is just sustainable. I think he'll shoot between 38 and 40% from three. I think he's an all-star. I don't know about being all NBA. And I also think Embiid's just going to lead the team in scoring just because of the way they run their offense. But I think he's an all-star. Maxey's he's the man.
I as a neutral fan, maybe even Sixers hater, I could see a path in which Tyrese Maxey ends up being an all-star this year. I think that's probably more likely than not, considering I'm pretty high on what the Sixers are going to do this season. I'm not sure. In fact, I'm pretty confident he will not sniff an all-NBA team just because of how many good to great guards there are in the NBA as a whole right now, between Steph, Luka, Trey, Ja Morant. I just think
there's a ton of great guards. It's tough.
And this is just the most talented the NBA has been in maybe my lifetime. And in order to be one of those, cream of the crop, top 15 to 20 guys, I mean, you have to put up some serious numbers on usually pretty good teams. So, and it's tough to see him beating out those guys or someone like
that. Plus he's playing next to Harden too. So it's really going to depend on how they kind of stagger their minutes, how a full season of playing with Harden looks. So it's hard to know, but I do think he could be an all-star. He's the best. you mentioned that the league is deep in guards. It's the most talented league you've seen. Let's talk about teams other than the Sixers and Wizards. I think people would appreciate that.
I think that's probably safe to say. I don't think there's a lot of dual Wizards Sixers fans out there, so they probably want to hear a little bit more about the rest of the league. So I think we should probably talk about our predictions for the NBA this season, starting with the MVP. I feel like I might know where you're going to go with this, but Joe, who do you have for MVP this year?
I have Joel Embiid winning the MVP. He should have won
Shocker.
last year. Should have won last year.
Disagree.
I don't understand the Jokic slobber. I don't get it. I don't see the offensive genius that the world sees. Whatever, he makes cool passes from the post. I don't think that Jokic is a good enough defender to make that gap bigger than like Jokic as an overall offensive player is awesome, but as a defender, he's a bit of a cone. I don't know. Embiid just had the season of his life last year. I don't want to go on a rant about last season, but I don't understand how Embiid didn't win MVP. I'm picking Joel Embiid to win MVP this season.
To nobody's surprise, I could have bet my house.
Jokic won't win 3 in a row. It's impossible. It's not going to be Jokic.
I completely agree with that. I don't think the stuff Jokic would have to do to win his 3rd straight MVP. I mean, I don't see anyone in the league being capable of doing that. However, if you recall, I was not a Jokic guy for MVP last year because I just didn't think his team was good enough. Now he dragged that sorry ass team to 48 wins, which is impressive. That's an impressive feat. And I think he's one of the 5 best players in the NBA, as is Joel Embiid. But last year, I was on record saying that the MVP should have gone to the best player in the league, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and I'm keeping that same energy right now. I think he's the best two-way player in the league. I think we saw in the playoffs just how much he can elevate his game. He's one of those guys that never takes plays off. He's going hard every single time. I think the Bucks are going to be really, really good. Top 3 team in the East at worst. At best, the best team in the NBA record-wise. And I think this is the year that he comes back and takes his crown for the MVP. He hasn't won in a long enough time. There's been enough of a gap that I don't think that MVP hangover is still going to be there for him. And I think he's going to come back and take it up, even another level. Because that's what he's been doing just about every year. I thought he was the best player in the league last year. I think he's the best player in the league this year. I guess we'll see what happens.
I like that. I mean, if you're not going to choose Embiid, I think Giannis is a good guy to go with. I've kind of done a 180 on Giannis. I used to think he was super lame. He would get on my nerves, probably because the Bucks just like always crush the Sixers. But Giannis is awesome, man. I mean, he's like Maxey on steroids, and that he just gets so much better every year, and he's just already just an absolute freak of nature. Giannis is a good pick. If I wasn't going to choose Embiid, I'd probably choose Giannis too, because I agree everything you're saying.
Yeah, and one of the picks that I always see floating around, and I just don't see it, even though I love him. I just don't believe in Luka winning the MVP this year, just because when have we seen Luka start hot from the very beginning of the year? And I just don't think the Mavs are going to be good enough to really bring it to that MVP level for him. I guess we'll see. But
I love Luka. I think he's fine, but I don't get the Luka as a top 10 guy. Some people say he's a top 5 player. I'm like, get out of here.
You don't think he's a top 10 guy?
Okay, he's probably top 10 guy, but he's not top 5.
This anti-European hate from you, Joe, has to stop. It has to stop somewhere. First, you say you don't understand Jokic's offensive abilities. Now you're throwing out that Luka might not be a top 10 guy.
No, Luka's a top 10 guy. Luka's a top 10 guy. I'll give you that. But I just don't. He's one of those guys I just don't like watching him play basketball. I hate the I'm too slow to dribble past you, so I'll shoot a step back, but it always goes in kind of thing. Like, I don't know, man. I I can't get down watching Luka. A lot of it is like my brain is tainted because for some reason the Sixers have always played Luka very well. So fandom goes into this, and a lot of that also actually was Simmons. Simmons always guarded Luka very well, but even after Simmons, they've had pretty good success against him. But I don't think Luka's a top 5 player. I probably could choose 5 players I would put above him.
I think he's probably top 6 to 7. I have to look at a list, but either way, I think he's the Vegas favorites, and I just personally don't see that because I don't think he has the consistent or showed us that he can have the consistency that you need for the MVP season. So let's move on from our MVP predictions to our best record predictions.
Actually, in my notes I wrote Bucks, but part of me thinks that the Sixers are just going to roll through the regular season. I think the Sixers are deep enough to have an awesome regular season. I think part of the regular season is just like having bodies to throw at people, which they have plenty. Their bench is insane. I think I'm going back and forth. I think it's going to be Sixers Bucks, but I think the Sixers and Bucks are going to be the top 2 teams in the East and the top 2 teams in the league.
I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, I decided that my best record team is your Philadelphia 76ers. You could say what you want about their playoff woes, having notoriously unclutched players like James Harden or Joel Embiid leading the way. But I think that this team is tailor-made for the regular season, and barring injury, I think they're going to win a lot of games. I could see them winning high 50s, despite how talented the East is, just because, like you're saying, they're very deep. They can throw a lot of different lineups at you. They seem to solve is a strong word, but they've had maybe the best solution to their biggest problem, historically speaking, in having Montrezl Harrell as a backup big. And again, say what you want about playoff woes, I think it's a little overblown.
Montrezl isn't going to be their backup.
I see you keep saying that because you think it's going to be Paul Reed.
Yep.
But
I think Paul Reed is going to be first line of defense off the bench. He'll be the first Embiid reinforcement.
That makes me worried then. But either way, I'm a big Montrezl guy. I think whether he's the first one off the bench for Embiid or whether he's just playing, 20 minutes a game next to one of the bigs, Paul Reed, Embiid in general, I think he's a very good regular season player. And I think he will do some things to show everyone that he's not actually as bad of a defender in the playoffs as some people think he is. I'm
starting to buy what you're selling on that. I initially thought Montrezl could not play in the playoffs, but you talked me into it.
Well, because I was thinking about it, and you look at who he played in the last 2 bad playoff series. He played Jokic, who absolutely annihilates smaller bigs.
Annihilates everyone.
You can't stop him. And then he played the Suns, who are tailor-made to destroy bigs in the pick and roll. Or they get him on the switch. Chris Paul crosses, left elbow jumper. I just think that he's gone up against maybe the 2 worst matchups for him possible. And I don't think that there's anyone in the East that can really have that same effect, because the best offensive big man in the East is Joel Embiid, and he doesn't have to worry about him now.
This podcast is officially a Montrezl Harrell fan account, so you heard it here first.
Okay, well, from the best record to the worst record, I think there are a lot of very good candidates for the worst record in the league, but I just can't seem to pick anyone else besides the San Antonio Spurs. And the conversations or the comparisons, I should say, about the 90s Spurs having their one bad year and then getting Tim Duncan versus the 2022, 2023 Spurs having a bad year and getting Wembanyama. It writes itself. You look at the roster of this team and it is just garbage from top to bottom. Garbage. So
there's another reason to reinforce your thinking here. And I also have the Spurs as the worst team in the league. You want to know why they're going to be the worst team in the league?
Please.
Because they brought on board esteemed coach Brett Brown to lead them through it. So I think they're ready for it. They brought in the right guy. They brought in the guy who's been there. I think the Spurs will probably be the worst team in the league. I think the Thunder are going to be bad. It really just depends on how many games that SGA plays, but the Thunder are going to be pretty bad too. I mean, the Jazz are going to stink. The Rockets are going to stink. The West is just got some really bad teams, man.
Really bad team. I mean, impressively bad teams. So here's an interesting one this year. Who do you have as winning the scoring title?
I think Giannis. This is turning into a Giannis fan account too, but I think last year was the last year Embiid really was trying hard to win MVP. I think this year he's going to do less.
There's too much of a workload considering the pieces he has on his team now.
Exactly. I think Embiid's fully capable of doing it. I just don't think he wants to anymore. And I don't think he also had to do that most of last year. I mean, when Maxey wasn't on the floor, he'd be sharing the floor with guys like George Niang, Furkan Korkmaz, and Shake Milton. So he had to do a lot of it last year. It wasn't just him trying to win MVP, but he doesn't have to do it. I don't think Embiid's going to try. I don't think he's going to care. So I don't think it's going to be Embiid. I think Giannis is going to do it. I don't really know who else. I mean, maybe you can always think of Curry will be up there.
My take, despite the borderline slander I was giving him previously in this pod, I think Luka Doncic has to be in the conversation for scoring title this year. He lost Jalen Brunson, who just destroyed my whiz in preseason last night. And they didn't really replace Brunson with anyone that can score the ball. I mean, you could say Tim Hardaway Jr. is coming back and he's gonna do some stuff. He's pretty ball dominant. But realistically, I don't really see a world in which Luka doesn't put up 30 points a game. And once you're hitting that 30 points a game mark, you're going to be top 3 likely.
I think Beal's going to put up a ton of points too.
God, a ton of points, right to 38 wins. I can't wait. But coming back to the scoring title, I think Luka takes it this year. I'm not sold on him being MVP, but I am sold on him putting up just crazy points. So we have to discuss our finals predictions heading into the season. I would love to hear who you think are making the finals and who's going to walk away with the ring this year.
Well, I hate to be that guy, but I think the Sixers are going to win the East. I can't see. I don't know. Every year there's something weird about the Sixers that makes me not think they're quite good enough. But not this year. You know, the Jimmy Butler year was a great team, but anytime it is so rare for a team to make a big mid-season, or even that was the case early season trade and win a title that year. It's weird. Usually teams that win have been playing together for at least a year or two. And last year I never thought they were going to win. Even if Embiid doesn't break his face, they would have lost in the Eastern Conference Finals if they found a way to advance. It's just after the Harden trade, they were so incomplete. They were missing shooting. They were missing rebounding. They weren't deep. But this year, man, their team is just complete. I've never seen a Sixers team this normal. I've never seen a team with this many guys who could defend, who could rebound, who could shoot. I think that the Celtics are going to be tough. I think obviously the Bucks are going to be great. All right, so I want to give my thoughts on the West. Before I do that, I want to just do a quick ban. Comcast is banned from the pod as we're recording this. I have experienced 2 outages. So everybody, if you work for Comcast, if you're affiliated with the company, you're banned. My pick is kind of a loser pick. I picked the Clippers to win the West. I think Clippers have loser written all over them, but I just don't know who else I believe in out of the West. I don't think the Warriors are going to be as good as they were last year. It's a strange year for the West. I mean, there's a lot of train wrecks there. Certainly not the Lakers. So I'm going to say Sixers, Clippers, Sixers win. But I don't feel good about picking the Clippers.
Yams, you dirty dog. Not only did I pick the 76ers to make the finals, but I picked the Los Angeles Clippers. And I ended up with choosing the Clippers to win the whole thing. And I agree.
But you can't feel good about it. You can't feel good about picking the Clippers.
I don't feel good about picking the Sixers. But at the end of the day, I think these teams are deep and loaded from top to bottom with good talent that I think are all very capable of playing in the playoffs. And obviously the benches shrink in the playoffs. We see it every year. Mm-hmm. But I think for the Sixers, Joel Embiid, Harden, I think these guys are due. This might be the year. I told you weeks ago, I woke up feeling like the Sixers are going to make the finals, and I stand by that. The more I look at this team, the better I feel about them having a little bit of a run. And then at the end of the day, for the Clippers, is it a loser pick? Of course it is. But I think Kawhi is going to rest. He's going to play like 50 games, and he's going to come into the playoffs healthy and rested and ready to just run through the league like a hot knife through butter. I think some people forget just how good he is when he's healthy. And
Paul George is awesome. I mean,
since Kawhi was hurt, he had an incredible playoff series, which he had not done since he was on the Pacers. I don't know. I think that they don't have a ton of weaknesses, the Clippers, and I think this is their year. And part of me also hopes this is their year, because the only thing that makes me more happy than the 76ers losing are Lakers fan tears, and nothing would make them more upset than having a new king of Los Angeles. Well, with our predictions finished, I think it's time to talk about, maybe a couple other teams briefly. Specifically, I want to hear who your hot mess team is going to be. A team with high aspirations and is a total disaster, or a team that just falls short of expectations. I think there's probably 3 favorites, but I'd like to hear your take.
I'm going to say the hot mess team is going to be the Brooklyn Nets.
One of the 3.
I can't see it going well for them, man. I just can't. I mean, every year with Ben Simmons, I've watched Ben Simmons since he's played his first NBA game. Every year, people are like, "Oh, he actually doesn't have to do this because we have all these other guys who do that. He generates threes. He does this. He does that. He does so much." But any offense, like, I don't care if you have Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, like, those are 2 of the most dynamic offensive players in the league. But when you have a Simmons half-court offense, it is so insanely limited. Like, I've seen it. It doesn't work. And just beyond the X's and O's in basketball, what a weird group of people. Just what a strange group of people on one NBA team. You have Kevin Durant. Just think about this. It's basically like you're with a girl and you're like, I don't want to be with this girl anymore. Then you get out there and like no one else wants to date him. She's like, all right, fine, we'll get back together, but I don't really like you. Like, he's there. He didn't even want to be there, but he gave up on his attempt to leave. Kyrie Irving is not known to be the most normal of people. We have Ben Simmons, who is just one of the most can't read the room.
He's a young socialite.
He's the young socialite. And then you throw in a couple guys in there like Seth Curry, who Ben Simmons just decided, who's his teammate, who just decided to throw under the bus on the JJ Redick pod. Like, I don't understand how it works there. You have a coaching staff who your best player Durant was like, you have to fire them or else I'm leaving. Like, it's not a normal group, and talent can only take you so far. I think that team's going to lose a couple games, and Kyrie Irving's going to burn some form of sage, and Kevin Durant's going to tweet, and Simmons is going to, I don't know, have a meltdown. It's a weird group. I don't want to keep ranting about the Nets, but I think they're going to be a disaster.
Yeah, they're easily my pick for the team I would love to see them win the finals the most that isn't the Wizards, because it would just cause chaos. And every Philadelphia fan I know would be beside themselves. I mean, I would love that to happen. I don't think it happens. I think they're about to be a total mess. They're one of the obvious teams for this question. Along with, in my opinion, the Suns being an obvious team, especially with the news about Ayton not talking to Monty Williams all summer, and then the Lakers, if the Lakers even count.
I can't count them because I don't think they'll be like, I don't think they're good.
I think that's totally fair. Yeah. Give me your overachiever.
Every year I think it's going to be them, and it never is, but it has to be them this year because the West is so bad. It has to be the Kings. I think the Kings. It has to be their, like, it's almost like, I think about the players they have. I mean, Harrison Barnes is just the most overall normal, good player you could ask for. Any team would take Harrison Barnes. I'm a big Davion Mitchell fan. I don't like Sabonis, but like Sabonis is a positive player. Like when he's healthy, Sabonis is awesome. it has to be the Kings this year. Like this is their chance to finally. It's been 100 years. Make the playoffs. Like the West is terrible.
With Mariners making the playoffs in the MLB this year, they're officially the longest North American franchise to have not made the playoffs. This is their year. I think they have the offensive firepower to really score on teams. And then additionally, you look at the West, and you were saying this. They play the Jazz, the Spurs, the Rockets, and the Thunder, of course, all 3 to 4 times each. And if they can go like 12, 13, and 2 against those teams, like they have a serious chance. And the Kings are very clearly better than those teams. It just comes down to like, are they going to do Kings things, or are they actually going to take that step and make that push to get into the play-in game and give themselves an actual chance to make the playoffs for the first time in what is it now? 15 years, 16 years. I think this is year 16. The other team I was thinking about, and I'm not super confident in this. I think they're not very deep, but I was thinking about the Pistons just because I think Cade is set to make a very big jump this year. And I really like Sadiq Bey. I really like the addition of Bojan Bogdanovic. And then I think Ivy is like the perfect combo guard to kind of play next to Cade. He's not going to have the ball in his hands as much. And some people that didn't really watch him in college think that's going to be a big issue. But in college, he played off ball a ton. He's an insane cutter. He's going to walk into the league, one of the most athletic guards in the NBA. I actually kind of watching him in college and the way he moves, he reminds me a little bit of Tyrese Maxey. So I'm interested to see what his rookie season is like. It's very tough for guards to come in and be productive their rookie year, but I still think he's going to do some good things.
Yeah, I agree. Pistons are going to be fun. It's just so hard to win a lot of games when you're playing that many good teams in the East so consistently. I was looking at their schedule too. It's pretty tough. You put them in the West though, and they might be a sexy pick for like a play-in spot. But I'm looking forward to the season. There are a few things I'm excited about, and there are some players in the NBA that I don't know what it is about the NBA. Maybe it's because there's so few guys who play at once, like, it's 5-on-5, but how one player can make such a difference. But there are some guys that I just can't stand. And I want to do this one of our last segments here is just that I can't stand this guy of the week. And we don't have to do this every week. But before the season starts, I'll give you the floor first if you have one. But tell me about who you just can't stand watching play basketball, or watching play just as a person. Like who can't you stand in the NBA?
So I think this is another one where there's some obvious picks, but I don't want to go obvious with this because
you don't want to say Westbrook.
I don't want to say Westbrook. I don't want to say Davis Bertans, even though my opinions on them are very strong. So I went with a little bit out of the box. And I'm just bothered by DeJounte Murray. I think he is a guy that spoke all about how humble he is just so he can go play some schmucks in a pickup basketball game and talk crazy trash to them, bounce the ball off his head as if this all-star NBA player isn't going to be significantly better than Joe Schmo from down the court. And he, I think, is going to have a fine year, but I would like him to be put in his place a little bit more after this very bizarre summer where he slowly turned himself into a villain while constantly preaching about remaining humble and humility.
I don't want to be that unconventional here. I hate doing the Simmons thing. I hate doing it, but I can't ever get over it. I just can't get over it. I can't stand the guy. I can't. And
this was a bad couple weeks for Ben Simmons haters, or for good week for Ben Simmons haters, bad week for Ben Simmons.
Here's the thing with Simmons is like, I don't understand what he's doing ever. Like, he makes life so hard for himself. He chooses to do the worst thing, to say the worst thing, to just be a complete jerk. He's oblivious. He's just like emotionally, the least emotionally mature person I've ever seen. I mean, he's gone on now. He's ever since his like extended silence from the Sixers, he's like back on his media tour, and everything he says just makes me like him less. Like he blames other people. He still refuses. Every time he talks, he's like, yeah, well, no one really understands like what I do. Everyone's stupid. I'm the best. You guys don't know ball. Like I hate the guys who are like in the NBA. Coaches do this too. Doc actually does this, which is why I get annoyed at Doc. Like you didn't play ball. You don't know ball. Like you don't understand me. Like, it's like, yeah, I do. Like, and like, if you, I don't know, if you ask him to say something about like what happened with the Sixers, he'll just go on some kind of tour about blaming other people or talking about how he actually is the best player on the floor because he guards the best player and no one else gets it. He compared himself to Giannis with his shooting, which is insane because Giannis is one of the most hardworking, improved players we've seen in our generation. I can't stand the guy. You look at him in interviews, he just has this stupid grin on his face. I can't stand him. I really can't stand him. And he's still the same player. Like, how could you be the same player from 2017 to 2022? Like, do something. Be better. Like, he's the same player, and everyone talks himself into it. Everyone is like, oh, he actually doesn't have to do this. He actually doesn't have to do that. But everyone's just like, I don't know, rubbing his back. Like, it's okay, Ben. Like, you're going to be fine. It's just, he's the worst. He's the worst. I can't stand the guy.
It is truly impressive that, Ben Simmons as the hated player of the week is low-hanging fruit, but it still needs to happen because that is how bad his whatever podcast media tour has been in the last few weeks. He's taken no responsibility. I don't know. I don't get what he's doing. I don't know if he has a publicist or a PR person. I assume he does, but I can't imagine they're loving what he's been up to. So,
and the thing with Simmons is like, when you come out of something like that, it's so easy. Like, just say, yeah, like I was in a bad place. It was a bad time. It didn't go well. We're moving on. But he just goes back and he's like, well, if you actually watch the tape, if you watch like that and that and that, and you watch me guard him, it's like, shut up. And he flashes around the mental health thing like it's like a hall pass. It's like, here, mental health. It's like, have a real conversation. Like, I don't know. He's just the worst, man. I can't. I want to get over it, but I'll be honest. Like, I'm self-aware enough to the fact that I'll never get over it. I'm not going to take the high road. I'm never going to get over it. So.
And that is why the Nets winning the finals would be the best thing to happen in my life, to see reactions from fans like you.
I'll never get over it. That the Nets winning the finals would do it for me. Like, I don't know. I can't come back from that. I can't come back from that. But they won't, because he's the same player. The playoffs, they're going to be playing 4-on-5, and it's going to be the same thing that happened in Philadelphia. I can't stand him. I can't stand that guy. By the way, quick thing about Simmons I want to plug. He fouled out in 12 minutes in a preseason game last night. So good job, Ben.
Hey, he put up great stats, though, like 2, 2, and 3 or something like that.
Draymond line.
Draymond line. So that brings us to our very last segment, and that is a brief one. Which non-Sixers or Wizards game are you most excited to watch this week, and why?
I'm going to go Nets Pelicans.
I'm right there with you, Yams. Right. Could not agree more.
I'll give you my quick reasons. One is just Simmons has played in preseason games. Who cares? Like, I want to see him play in a regular season game. I want to see him go to the free throw line. And also, like, beyond that, like, I'm excited about the Pelicans. They're going to be fun. Zion's healthy, right? Is he going to play?
Not only is Zion healthy, Zion is skinny. We have skinny Zion. I think the Pelicans might be the most, on paper, entertaining team in the league coming into this season. And I plan on tuning in for as many games as I possibly can, because when Zion is on and when Zion is healthy, there's just no one like him. And I'm excited to see what they can do. So with that brings us to the close of the very first podcast. Joe, this has been an absolute pleasure. I look forward to doing this with you every week. Any closing thoughts?
Let's go Sixers, baby. Let's get out of the second round for the first time since I was 6 years old. Let's do it.
And here we go, Wiz.
I can't believe we're back. It's just Real Housewives for men. Let's do it.
Let's get it. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll be back next week with another episode of The Drive and Kick. Thank you.